negative.
Back to the channel. So what I wanted to go ahead and talk about and give a quick update on before the week starts next week is pretty much where we're currently at. The dollar is looking like it is finding support right around this area. It may come back and retrace just right here, but I don't expect it to break down any further than that, just because we are pretty much comparing this to the last time the dollar rocketed away and then immediately bounced, came back for support, bounced again. This is pretty much the bullish divergence right here, which is what I'm looking at and pretty much comparing it to. So if you can tell on our line, this is the first retrace, which would be the most drastic. But right here, usually this is where we start finding support. Whether it wants to do a quick little fake out, it may come back and do a bullish divergence right here somewhere, especially on the rate of change. It does look like it may do that. But if it does, it's only going to confirm what we already know. How that affects Bitcoin is it might give it a short-term pump. Now, that may be very small, just because if the dollar does go from like 103 to worst case scenario 102, if it does go down there, it'll be very, very temporary, just because look, this is what I'm going ahead and comparing it to. This is what I've had lately. So it tried to fake us out right here on the rate of change. This is pretty much when I've been calling BS the whole way down. Right here is where I expect it to go, like give it a bullish divergence right here. And so what I expect it to do is, if it doesn't come over here to retest these highs, it might actually break. I'm very bullish on the dollar just because of this. Look at what's going on with stocks, risk assets, and pretty much everything else, including Tesla. So if you look at Tesla, this thing has been just literally free falling. And because of that, I don't know if this is going to end up being a dead cat bounce or not and end up going just to these lower lows right here, because it does look like this was where it peaked, but this is where it bottomed. So it might end up coming back down after getting smacked right here. So definitely 90s possibility. If it breaks 100, it's definitely going to touch the 90s. So just be very careful with that. But what I was trying to say is why I think the dollar is not done yet, and it is going to have like a second leg run. I don't know if it'll have a third one, but the reason why I'm very bullish is everybody's starting to go ahead and cash out of their, or at least take profits on like their assets. That only puts further pressure on the dollar, and the dollar, because everybody's switching from asset to dollar, right? So same thing. And then right here, the way that it'll affect Bitcoin is it'll give it a short-term pump because the dollar is weakening if it does that, but then it'll come back and still continue. This is what I currently believe, and this is where we're currently at. So I'll go ahead and expand. This is Bitcoin right here. So if it does come back to try and like do its little fake out, I definitely think that we may come back for lower low, just because of how it's starting to set up. Look at the rate of change. It keeps smacking into this line of resistance. So if you don't break through, how many times have we heard that? Yeah, you get busted down, right? So if that were the case, it would come back for a lower low, but it depends. And that's ultimately what I'm waiting for, because even though it is making like a bullish divergence here, I still think that we still need to come back down and make either like a better leg for a bullish divergence over here. If not, it'll come back and touch somewhere here, and then we may get a bounce, or it might go lower. But this is all entering 2023. So now we're talking 2023 timeframes and what the possibilities are here. So whether we get a bounce around this level, completing a bullish divergence here, or breaks it and comes over here and then tries to bounce, it's going to be around this area, from my opinion. I think it's going to be a little too easy if it goes from right here where it's currently at. It might do a fake out to do something similar to this, like it really likes to repeat patterns and then break, if that makes sense. So if it does that, expect a sell-off maybe entering the first week of January with the information that we're going to get. Not entirely sure, just how I'm looking at things. And then as far as the SPY, you can tell how it might want to go come up and test the line of the resistance up here. It's making, if I can tell like correctly, this may be a bear flag. This is a bullish divergence, yes, but this like, so this is why I keep thinking that we're about to get faked out. We'll see if it does play out, just because I do think we're going to get a third hump here and in the negative MACD. And this might break down sharply. If it bounces here and then comes back to try and test the resistance and break through but fail, or if it does this one right here, ultimately what the larger goal is because the Fed is saying that soft landing is less likely now, or almost like I don't think we're going to get a soft landing, but how we get there, it never goes straight down. So these are the levels that I'm looking for, a hard landing. This is pretty much the 2600 area for the S&P 500. And then this would be the soft landing that everybody thinks we're going to get, which we might get a huge bounce at. But because of the way that things are starting to look at, like next year with retail, with like how much money people have in their savings accounts, like all that data that we're getting, it looks like we're going to get a bounce and then crash hard. I don't know how high we're going to go though. So we'll start looking at that as soon as we get more information, because what that'll help establish is once we start bouncing upwards, it'll help establish certain lines that we can start drawing, metrics. But I know we're going to get a big bounce because everybody's waiting at those areas, including myself, especially for Bitcoin, other risk assets, because obviously those have the most to gain. Not financial advice. Don't take any positions on what I'm saying. Just understand how to look at certain things. I don't think we're going to go anywhere here, in my opinion. The reason why is because this looks like a bear flag. And last time that we had a bear flag, something like this played out. This played out. You see, like if you draw, stick, flag, breaks, comes down, finds knee low. So that's what I think that is going on here. It's trying to do something similar. That's why I'm pretty much waiting for something massive like this to happen, because this might be feeble. This might be a huge retracement. If it does come back drastically sharply down here and then rallies, this might be some like a short-term bottom where we start testing things around here. I don't know how these bounces are going to go because we're supposed to go down here. Remember, this is a hard landing, but the hard landing I believe is going to be somewhere in the summertime. Usually crashes start to happen between like April into summer. So that's where I'm looking at. And then entering 2023, we may get a slight short-term sell followed by maybe a bounce, but we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. I just know that I'm watching the VIX like a hawk because look how it's playing out. I started to draw this because this is usually, it indicates where we may come back and test, and I'll show an example of it. So this right here, we got our fake out just like how we drew here, small little fake out. And afterwards, it came back up here, right? So we may get something similar. It might try and fake us out. But I ultimately believe we're going to go up here. But look how it lines up. So once it starts breaking down, if we were to draw a line here, you see? That's why I drew the second one. That way we start having, once it does finally break, and I believe it'll end up playing out to where it spikes drastically, cause the sell-off. And once it causes that sell-off, because look how it's squeezing. Look at that support though. It's like literally riding it. And once it does break to the upside, it's probably going to hold up here, get some sort of activity like this, and then eventually come back and break, find support again, bounce, and then we'll start getting our full sell-off. And that's usually when I believe that the market will start to rally hardcore. if not get a massive, massive bounce. But before we can go up, I think we need to go down just because of how the VIX looks. Like, I'm not a professional when it comes to this, but I know the VIX like the back of my hand. I study this more than anything. I overlay it with the S&P 500. I've shown you guys in multiple charts. Like, the VIX is my thing. And it's helped me be right, especially here. You can go back and like check the video before. I think I posted it maybe like a day or two before the stock market crashed. But I said that this was going to be a fake out, and then it spiked, and then we got a huge sell off. But I called this. Like, the VIX literally leads the way sometimes whenever your bonds and currencies get murky, because the whole uh, yield curve control that Japan's doing. Whenever waters get murky, look at the VIX. There's three indicators that I look at, and the VIX is literally one of the best to look at. So what I think is going to start to happen is Bitcoin might get a false rally, come back down, or if anything, we got into like a sell off into the new year, then we bounce, which would be pretty much in line with what we're saying. And then, yeah, and why I think that is because the VIX comes back down at some point, tests. This is when we might get a rally after it comes back. So if it does something like this, I'll draw it out. Bam, because yeah, not backwards, slightly here, and then like that. Or if it comes up here and then like that, like I drew right here, those would be rallies. So higher VIX, lower market, lower VIX, higher market. That's always how it plays because it's the volatility. So just be very careful. Don't let FOMO mess you up, especially entering the new year, because things might not be what they seem. And we've seen how the market makers are trying to trick us. Oh, the last rally, or not the last rally, last chance to get in before everything rockets. But no, Bitcoin is not at the bottom, and this is why I believe we're not at the bottom with Bitcoin. This is where I believe that we're going up, but this is why I believe we're not done. This might be the bottom entering the new year, wherever it ends up being, whether it's January, February. I don't think we're done, but I do believe that this multi-year support level is going to kick in, and that puts Bitcoin between 8,000 to 12,000. Be very, very careful because so many people are going to be waiting at those levels. And as soon as Bitcoin starts touching 14,000, you can bet there's going to be a lot of people that come in, and that's where we might get a huge bounce. I drew this out just because this is where, like, I'm indicating we may get a bounce. This doesn't look to me like we're going to be getting a bounce around this point, because if you can tell, sell off, this would confirm a bullish divergence with a lower low, blast off, down, and yeah. So something similar will play out. If it plays out perfectly, then wow. But I believe something similar like this is going to play out, and that's going to be an opportunity of a lifetime, because the amount of people that are just going to pile in to get a Bitcoin, like a whole Bitcoin, do you understand how much of an opportunity that is? It went from 3,000 to 70 and it came back. Like, I understand macroeconomics and what's going on, but think of it as you get the opportunity to buy whole Bitcoins at extreme discounts because CBDCs are coming. And once they come, if they're programmable CBDCs, think of it like a currency you can program and have it used in any way you program it to be used, right? You can see the positive and the negative. So that's why I think there's a huge demand for Bitcoin coming. I do not think that I think this is all artificial and manipulated. And that's because the people that know what Bitcoin is are trying to get in super early and for cheap. And the people that don't and are just bought it for buying it, I mean, those people lost money. But you have to be in tune with what's going on in the world and understand, okay, how can this asset be used? Because if everybody's comparing it to gold, well, why is it gold? Why is it digital gold? Okay, well, can I use it anywhere? Yes, it can. Like, are there any restrictions to it? No. So as long as you know like the usage to it, you know it is not dead. You know if it comes back to these prices, it is a generational opportunity of a lifetime, and do not miss out, because it is going to make you a lot of money. Not financial advice, because the time frame that I'm looking at, I believe that by 2030, maybe we'll get $1 million Bitcoin by then. Not financial advice. Do not take any positions on what I'm saying, but just look at the halvings. Look at the way that Bitcoin functions. If you understand that, and the halvings every 4 years, they're not always on the same day, but it's the way that the network runs. Understand the network, and you'll do very, very well. And so that's my video for today. Just be very careful. Don't get caught off guard. There may be fake outs along the way. I do believe we might get one. I don't know where it's going to end. Just don't fall for it. Be very careful. I'm not saying not to take any positions. It's your money, but you're going in one direction here, and you've almost landed. Don't get caught up in the moment thinking, oh, this is the bottom, because we might easily retrace another 40-50%. And that is the generational opportunity of a lifetime, not financial advice. But yeah, if you guys have any questions, go ahead and leave a comment. But that is the video. Have a good day. Like and subscribe.